Counting the.
Cost of working in the commercial real estate business.
Okay, so how in the world did you get into that?
Woo, that's a great question. So it was a little bit roundabout. Commercial real estate was actually my second degree or second career. Coming out of undergraduate university, I had my degree in biology and I went on to get my master's in biology. And while I was working on that, I worked in a research lab at a university. And my goal at that time was ultimately to go to medical school and to become a doctor. So I did go to medical school. I did a year of medical school. And so I left working in research. But some family things happened, some life things happened. And so I decided not to go back for um, the remainder of the time. So I was at home, kind of working some odd and end jobs, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Research is very niche if you know anything about science. And the research community in Atlanta, which is where I'm from, is very small. So it's very difficult to kind of break into that. And having been away for a while, I was finding it difficult to do that. But I've always loved real estate. Actually, when I was debating on whether to do science, I was also considering engineering because I liked civil engineering, buildings, and things of that nature. But I decided to go the biology route and medical school. So I decided I would get my real estate license, which I did. There was no additional education that was needed for that, just to take a course, pass the exam, pay for your license. But I realized that I really wasn't interested in doing residential full time. I was more interested in big buildings and offices and development, how buildings are planned. And I realized I didn't have the training. I didn't know how to break into that field. I didn't know what I would need. I didn't know what connections to make. And the school that I got my first master's from in biology, I found out it had a master's in commercial real estate program, which was only for a year. So I decided to enroll in that program and they accepted me and it worked. I was able to make it work with my schedule. It was in person, which is what I was also looking for. I didn't want to do anything online. So I took the program, graduated with my master's in commercial real estate, and that really opened my eyes to, I mean, the vast positions and jobs you can do in commercial real estate. And from that, I got my first job in LA working for a commercial real estate company and doing lease contracts negotiations. And that kind of led me to where I am now.
Oh, so the job that you landed on in LA is the current job that you have.
Actually, no. So the company I worked for in LA, I worked in LA for 2 years. And then I asked, and so that was during COVID. I moved to LA right at the beginning of COVID. So I spent my first 2 years kind of in the house by myself, no family, no friends. And I asked my company if I could go back to Georgia, which they allowed me to do. To do. So I transferred back to Georgia and worked for them another year and a half. And then in October of last year, I was had the opportunity to kind of get a promotion, a little promotion, if I changed companies, and so I went with another company, and so that's where I am now.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So whatever you just said is causing me to ask a few questions. So
Yes,
um, how difficult is it to get a license as a real estate agent?
it's not very difficult at all. Um, just to get your real estate license, and that allows you to buy or to sell property, right? And in most states, you can sell any type of property, residential property or even commercial property. So basically, that's all you need to, if you want to get into the business, if you want to work what we call brokerage, meaning that you are the middleman between real estate transactions, um, industrial spaces, warehouses, office space, mixed use spaces, retail spaces for stores. um, multifamily apartment complexes, all of that is commercial. So you really, the only thing you need is a license, but it's not very difficult. It was, I think, a 75-hour course that you have to take. You can do it in person in most states or online. You sit for your state exam, which costs a fee, and then you pay for your license, which costs another fee. And then some states make you require you to become a part of a real estate association, and so then that's another fee. So really, just taking uh, the certification course, passing it, taking the exam, you're in, and you can jump into selling buildings, selling homes, doing real estate.
So even a high school kid can just pass the test and start doing it?
I believe in most states you have to be at least 18.
Okay.
Yes.
So how long did it take for you
So
to go through the process?
it actually didn't take me very long. I think I took the course and took the exam and passed it within 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh wow.
I was really focused. I mean, I had started, the idea had come to me earlier than that, and I wasn't very, committed to it. I had started the courses and I was like, I was working my other job still in research. And so I wasn't really motivated. I did a few courses, or of the classes, but then when I came back and I wasn't without a job, I was like, I kind of need to do something. so so I was very motivated to finish the classes and take the exam. And so I did it very quickly. Definitely less than a month. I think about 2 weeks between starting the classes, finishing the course, and sitting for the exam.
So if somebody wants to get into the real estate business, would you recommend that they need to go to the to school to get masters and do something other than just getting a license, or what was your advantage of getting masters?
I would say the advantage for me for getting a master's is that I had no business training or knowledge whatsoever. And the master's program really opened my eyes to all of the different opportunities there are in commercial real estate. Because when you say real estate, most people think of just brokerage. They think of the buying and selling, this individual that brings, connects these two individuals, the person who wants to sell the building or the property and the person who wants to buy it. So they think of that middleman. And also, of course, because of all the TV shows that are out there about real estate, selling New York or selling LA. And so they center around that brokerage. And rightly so, because it's a that's a field where you can really kind of set your goals, right? If you want to sell a lot, if you want to make a lot of money, uh, it's possible. You put in the work, you beat the street, you learn your products. There's a great opportunity to do a lot of business. But there are so many facets to real estate beyond just that brokerage aspect, and that's what being in the program opened my eyes to. There's, when you think about buying and selling, most cases you have a lender. People get mortgages. So there's people who know commercial real estate who are working at banks, who are working at investment firms, right? They are able to run numbers. If you like numbers, if you like spreadsheets, if you like doing analysis, then being a lender for like a bank might work for you, or working in an investment company, people who just loan money to people who want to buy properties, right? You have to run the numbers to see if it's going to be profitable. Then there's those individuals who like more people interaction. So you can be a property manager, right? You still have to understand commercial real estate. You have to understand the aspects of it, because as a property manager, you have tenants and you have to manage the tenants. You also have to manage the building, right? There's an AC and there's heating and there's water and all these things, break sometimes, the elevators, power, all these things. So you have to understand the building and be able to take care of your tenants. So if you want more of the person, people to people interaction, maybe a property manager is works for you. Or maybe you have great ideas and you like to look at land bare land and imagine what can go there. You want to develop property, right? Develop the land and put buildings there. Um, that's a whole nother world and a whole nother language. So that's what I didn't understand going into my master's program. And it also gave me kind of a network of people. So I had my classmates who most of us were already in some type of field, right? These most of the people in the class were not individuals right out of undergrad, right? These were individuals that were in a career, from lending to development. Some of them just had families that owned a lot of property and they wanted to know how to better manage the property, right? Some of them were lawyers. They came from the legal side. Some came from the financial sector. So there's a wealth of knowledge just within my class that I was able to pull from. And so it was more of the connection. And that's why I was really looking for an in person class as opposed to online, because I wanted the people connection. So that's to me what really set getting a master's apart. If you don't know exactly know what you like or what you want to do, like I did, it would be a great opportunity. And a lot of people look for that, right? We have companies in Atlanta that come and they pull from that program. Um, and they look for recent graduates from that program because they know that they are well versed in real estate and can kind of hold their own when it comes to analytics, when it comes to negotiations, when it comes to valuations of property and things of that nature. So that's what I would say would set it apart. But there's individuals that have really good networks already. They have really good connections. And if they set out to, start a business or to get into selling properties, they have people that they can go to right away. And so maybe it might not be for you if you already kind of have an idea of what you want to do. You could just kind of go into that. If you know you like property management, go get your property management certificate and do that. If you like analytics, work your spreadsheets, get a job starting out as in analytics and work your way up. So you don't have to get a master's. But I think for some of us, it was a crucial step to get to where we were hoping to go.
So the professors of those programs are the people that have been in that industry, or are they just kind of like a book knowledge people, or do they have really good connections with a whole bunch of people? Is that how it works?
Yes, so our program specifically our classes were mostly taught by industry professionals. So
Oh,
everyone that came to us had a full-time job, right?
oh, okay.
They work currently in the industry
Wow.
in some fashion, and specifically in the area in which they taught. We
Oh,
did have a couple of courses, right? Because you do need that foundational work. So we did have the career academics for a couple of our courses, like for business business math. That's not what it's called. It has another name, but yeah. So we're looking. So you have to do present value calculations. All these different things with numbers, right? You need the kind of the basis of it. So those individuals are PhD people who have studied and know the theory behind it. And then we had another course that was taught by a career researcher. So all he did was research real estate and write papers about real estate.
uh,
So I think it was a nice balance having mostly industry professionals
oh,
teaching the courses because you got to see they would bring their real world knowledge to it. So it's not just, this is what the book says and this is how the curves or the graphs go, or this is what risk is on a graph. They could take their real world um, stories and apply it to that and help you to start to think as a real estate professional.
oh. So did you say you have been interested in real estate, even when you're young or something?
I did. I had an interest more so in buildings. So that I guess that is real estate. But yes, when I was younger, I was deciding between biology or actually engineering. I had a full ride scholarship to a prominent engineering university in the US. And I really wanted to go, but it was a very large school, very big school. And I didn't think that I would, I didn't think that was the best environment for me to be in such a large, uh, an environment with so many students. Like I think it was like 40 or 50,000 students. And I was like, I don't think, yeah, yeah, yeah. So the school that I chose, much smaller, we were like 2,400 at the
Oh.
university, but they didn't have an engineering program. And so after doing my visits, I really liked it. And so I said, well, I guess I'll just do biology. They were kind of on the same level, biology or engineering. So I went the biology route. But I've always really liked buildings, liked development, partly because, as I said before, I'm from Atlanta, and growing up, I was young at the time of the 1996 Olympics. So when Atlanta was preparing for the Olympics, I watched the city change, right? I
Wow.
watched all of these buildings get built. I watched communities shift from
Oh.
residential to commercial, and I was able to see the impact that it has, right? A lot of people say growth and development is great, but in some respects, it's not always that great, right? Because there are people that are lives that are impacted by that growth and that development. And so being able to watch and see communities um, utter, for the most, be destroyed, right? They're relocated to other places. Neighborhoods are now taken over to make and build these grand structures for the Olympics, and then to see how the city responded to it after the Olympics. And you built all this stuff for the Olympics. Now, what do you do with this, right? It's interesting to watch that. And so watching that growing up when I was very young, that had an impact on me. And so I wanted to understand more of that world and how does this happen. um, but again, it's very challenging because commercial real estate is, I think there's only like 2% of African Americans or blacks in commercial real estate, and I think minorities in commercial real estate is even, I think it's still less than 10%, so in the US, which is unfortunate when most of what is done impacts our communities. So
Wow. So, when you saw the impact of the real estate coming into your community, did you see a big cause that, or ambition, or some kind of dream, or hopes or aspirations coming into your mind that caused you to get into that business? What's the big picture that you have as you work for that industry?
well, the big picture, it's kind of shifted a little bit. Um, so the big picture was how initially was how can we do this? How can we develop? How can we grow? How can we improve upon what is here without l- leaving behind or disregarding what we call legacy communities, right? Individuals, communities, groups that have been there for generations, for decades, some even for centuries, right? How can we still progress, but include these groups in the conversation? And my hope was to be able to work in a position where I could see both sides, right? Where there's a understanding that growth and development is going to happen, progress is going to happen, but we can clearly do it in such a way as to not, or to as best as possible minimally impact these individuals or to include them in it. And I think that's something that Specifically, I don't think Atlanta has done a very good job with. I can't speak for other major cities, even though I could guess as to how they handle it. But I know Atlanta specifically has not done a very good job at being inclusive to those individuals who have history in these places. I mean, people who've been in the same home for, since 1800s, since
Wow.
the 1900s, and then all of a sudden, because you want to do something or companies has this vision, now we need to buy your home and we need to destroy it because, you know, of development in the name of progress. And I think that that really it really hurts individuals on the community. It hurts the community, right? Because now you're fracturing kind of the structure, what's been holding that community together. And it also hurts those that come along later because all of this history is now lost and no one has cared to even document, what's happening. So that if someone comes back later and wants to kind of know, where did my family come from or what did this used to look like? No one knows because it was just disposable. And so that was my hope, to be able to work in that arena and to do that. That was the initial big picture that I had watching the Olympics, watching that development, to learn, get in those rooms and to see how these decisions are made and to just ask the questions. Because sometimes that's all it takes is for someone to sit there and ask the question, how is this impacting these groups that you're not even thinking about? Because it's not a line item on your spreadsheet, on your calculation. And so they're just excluded because it doesn't equate, it doesn't, roll down into your ROI. But that doesn't mean it's not important.
My wife's family in China got kicked out of their area, and then the government built an apartment for them as compensation for it. And then I think also another friend of mine had a church that was built by the city because the company, because they also had to kick them out. So I guess the people there didn't feel like they were compensated enough, or they didn't feel like they were treated fairly. Is that what happened?
Yes, yes, very similar, very similar. I mean, how, yes, you can put a value on your land, on the building, on the structure, but how do you compensate for history?
Yeah.
How do you compensate for generations, grandparents and great grandparents growing up in this? It's very difficult. And I think most people in these situations feel that way. They feel that they are forced to do it because, I don't know how it is in China, but like the US, we have eminent domain. And so the government can essentially say, we have to take this land. We need to put a road here. We need to build this. We need to do this. And we're going to give you, quote, fair market value for your home. But fair market value for my home might not get me, you know, anything. In some of these neighborhoods, right? Yes, it's
Wow.
fair market value, but to relocate, you didn't set the people up for success. You took their property, you took their history,
Oh.
and then you didn't set them up to be successful somewhere else. We're
Oh.
just going to give you the bare minimum. And so I think that's maybe, a bit of the social aspect of it. And just caring for people, right? Thinking about as Christians, we're our standard is Jesus. And we know that Jesus deeply cared for individuals and their position and their state. And I think in business, a lot of that is lost because there's, quote, no monetary value attached to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's still something that we should be thinking about. We as believers, as Christians, we should be thinking about what's the cost of life to this. how is this impacting these individuals on personal level, on a spiritual level, right? I mean, because just think about it, you do that and people are not happy with how they're compensated. Now there's grudges being held, right? There's anger, there's frustration. And so you had a hand in causing that. And it's just frustrating to see in the business world in general, but specifically in real estate, how that has played out in so many places and so many communities.
Wow, I see. So, I mean, I run a language institute, and I founded it so that many Koreans who don't learn to speak and write in English classes, whether it's in school or private English lessons, can learn to communicate with the whole world because it's not happening in school setting, in the traditional setting. And then I
Hmm.
have friends coming to work and learn, and many families have been impacted by it. That's my vision and that's my ambition. So, what is your blueprint that you have as you work in that industry, moving forward from your current company or in the future?
That's a great question. So the company that I work for now, a lot of what I do is lease negotiations, and it's specifically geared towards government. So um, in the U.S., the federal government is it's probably changed a lot over the last year because a lot of stuff has been happening with our government. But before that, the government was the largest lessee of space. So the government leased the greatest amount of space in the nation. So if you think about all the government services that we have, um, they need space, right? The IRS or the Social Security's office or transportation, Department of Transportation, or whoever it is, right? FBI, CIA, all these individuals, all these groups need space. They need buildings to house their people. And so I've been fortunate to be able to work in that space and to see just how kind of it works on this other side, kind of this niche group of of real estate happens. Um, and my goal with this is really to bring as much integrity to that position as possible. Um, I know that across most countries, right, there's kind of an apprehension towards the government to begin with, right? The government kind of just does what they want. But I believe that there should be integrity on both sides, right? There's individuals who do try to take advantage of the government, um, and then people feel like the government's trying to take advantage of them too. So, how can we bridge this gap? How can we have real conversations? How can we understand or assess the situation and come to an agreement that benefits both parties, not just short term but long term, right? Because what the government does is, in most cases, the government is kind of a solid feature
Yeah.
in any community, right?
Uh-huh.
They if your government is going somewhere, if you can't depend on them, then that doesn't bode well for your country usually,
Uh-huh.
right? Um, so they're going to be around for a long time. And so integrity, honesty, openness um, is what I hope that I bring and what I try to bring to my job where I am currently. And also, I think learning and understanding, different nuances that happen. Again, commercial real estate is a very broad field. And I specifically work in contract executions, lease negotiations, but There's a process that happens before it even gets to my desk, and then there's a process that happens after I negotiate the lease and we come to terms. Someone else takes it and it goes on, right? So how can I do my job in such a way as to make other individuals' job easier, right? When they read that lease, when they execute on that lease, ask those questions, right?
So, I've been uh, involved in several deals as a tenant or as a um, commercial space owner, and also residential space owner. So, sometimes you feel tempted to take advantage of the upper hand that you have over the situation because of more information that you have, or people are not aware of what is really going on. And I feel like real estate agents or the whoever is in that industry can do a lot of tug of war in terms of like who knows what and who is working with who. So, how do you strike a balance where you can maintain sense of integrity, but also at the same time you're maintaining your business?
That's a good question. I think in integrity, when people realize that you have a set of values and standards that you're not willing to compromise on, I believe people look at you in a different light and they're more willing to do business with you, right? If they understand that Kachael is not going to lie to get a deal done because lying is a sin,
Yes.
then they understand that I'm coming in honesty and with integrity and in good confidence, right? They can put their confidence in me. And I think a lot of times in business in general, companies lose that, right? Okay, so I might have been able to make or to negotiate $100,000 less on this deal by being sly, or even, $500,000, that's $1 million, whatever that number is, right? I might have been able to negotiate by using what I know or using kind of subversive tactics, but at what cost, right? The real estate industry is still a small industry, especially the commercial real estate industry, right? And so when people get wind that you can't be trusted, that you have no integrity, that you will do whatever you need to seal the deal, I mean, people will quickly stop doing business with you, right? I want to be able to deal with someone who I can deal with them in good faith. And so, yes, it might look different, the numbers that you're able to negotiate or get, but ultimately, I'm building something even more important, right? The real estate business is a relationship business. I would much rather someone come to me and say, you know, I'm sending people your way, Kachel, because I know I can trust you. I know that you will take care of them. And I know that you will not cheat them, that you will not try to get over on them, but that you will genuinely take care of them in the same way that you would want someone to take care of your loved ones, of your parents, of your siblings. And so I think that has far more weight than, some checkbook number, because people see that. People see honesty. They understand your character. And it might not come out in the first deal, it might not come out in your first year of business. But I guarantee when you stand on a firm foundation, which is what we have in the Bible, and that set of standards for governing ourselves and our interactions with others, people notice, and the right people will come your way, and you will be surprised by what opportunities come your way because of how you treat people.
So the golden rule that you practice in your workplace, where have you seen modeled? whether it's family, whether it's school, or whether in your friendship, like where did you pick it up?
Um, I would say one, first and foremost, is the Bible. I think that gives us the clearest standard of interactions and how to treat others. And then also my time working in other fields. As I said before, commercial real estate was new to me. I mean, I've only been in it for what, 5 years now. So I've worked other jobs, and to see my experience with those positions, with how people treated me in ways that I liked and in ways that I didn't like, um, has really shaped how I try to present myself, to others and in this line of work. Because as they say, your job may change, your title may change, your income may change, but your name is the one constant. It's going to follow you wherever you go. It's going to precede you even, right? And so I hope that when people speak my name in whatever circles they're being spoken in, that it is connected with um, characteristics that I want to be associated with, and specifically the characteristics of Christ, right? That I walk and move with integrity, with honesty, um, that I care for people and that people can see that I do care. And so those are kind of the biggest areas that I see.
Mm. So what are the actual like working hours or like actual things that you do? Looks like every day, every week, every month.
So, um, my working hours are a typical 9 to 5, I guess you would say. Although I start my schedule a little earlier. I'm an early bird, so I work. I start closer to 7, get out a little earlier. Um,
You get there by
my
7.
Yes, actually, I'm usually there before 7. I'm probably there by 6:30 in the morning. Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I like that. I feel more refreshed and energized
Wow.
early in the morning. Start getting late into the afternoon, I don't want to do anything. So,
Okay.
so, typical 9 to 5. My company does have opportunities to work um, alternative schedules. Like if you want to have one day off a week, you can do that. So I have a day off every other week that I don't come to work. Um, Typically, a lot of what I've been doing lately, as I said, this job I started in October. So it's a bit newer, and there's a lot of changes that are happening, a lot of reorganization. Um, but in general, a lot of what I do is herd cats is is the term I like to use. So I try to get the right people in the right places to have the conversation that needs to be had, right? Um, I saw put out fires, because a part of a part of what I do is not just lease contract and negotiation, but I also kind of the back end administer the leases. So when issues arise in our properties, when the tenants have issues, I'm usually routed in. Oh, the AC has stopped working. It hasn't been working for the past week. Our IT room is overheating. We have water leaks. And so I'm kind of the person that gets looped in to these issues. And I have to kind of, put the foot down, put the hammer down and say, look, our contract says this, we need this to be executed on. Um, so yeah, herding cats is the big thing that I do. A lot of emails. I read contracts a lot. That's probably one of the most time consuming things I do is I read leases. So our leases tend to be 100 pages or more. So I'm constantly reviewing leases, reading them, looking for clauses, looking, because every lease is different, you know. Even if you have a template, the template can be altered, and oftentimes they are. So things are put in, things are taken out. Um, so I read leases a lot. Yeah, that's a big one. So you kind of have to like to read, which I do, fortunately. So that's kind of the daily aspect. More over time, lease procurement can be a long process because a lot of what we do is build new spaces, build new buildings. So that's a process that can take from 3 to 5 years. So we're talking about understanding requirements. What do we need? What does the space need to look like? What type of rooms does it need to have? What type of flow do we need? Are there any special equipment or features that it has to have? Does it need to be in a specific location? Um, so, narrowing down those requirements and ensuring that those aspects are being maintained. That's the biggest thing, right? You can put your requirements on a piece of paper, but ensuring that those requirements translate into the actual lease or building design is a whole nother conversation, right? So as someone who negotiates leases and is ensuring that I clearly understand what the requirements are so that I can make sure when I'm negotiating, when I'm writing the lease, that everything is accounted for, that everything we need is showing up in some aspect with the design, with the lease, and that it's being discussed, it's being documented, minutes, emails, meeting notes, all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of detail work. So again, I'm pretty good at detail work. Coming from research, you have to be very detailed oriented when you do experiments all day long. Um, so I don't mind the detail, but I also like the aspect of being able to see the big picture. So we get in the nitty gritty of a lease, but I can see what that final um, deliverable is going to be. There's a building at the end of that. We did all of this so that we can get this structure constructed. And that helps me to better understand and get into the details. It's hard for me specifically to focus on details if I don't see a bigger picture of where it's going and why am I doing that. So that's one thing I do like about real estate is that I have both of those. I have the big picture, what we're going towards, what we need, what the outcome needs to be, and then how these little steps get us there.
So, so your company deals with finding a space, looking for the constructors, and then getting the people to get the project done, and then build it, get the money invested, execute it, sell them, fill them up, and then managing the relationships between the tenants and the landowners, have the people buy it and have the people rent it, and being the mediator, the whole thing.
Yes,
So it's a big commercial uh, real estate
yes,
company, right?
yes. And we do have individuals that are more specialized, right? So we do have individuals. Well, let me take a step back. So the job that I worked right before this was very similar, but my role there, the projects were smaller, a bit smaller, and I was, for the most part, kind of responsible for the whole life cycle. So the negotiation, the build out, and then managing it. Where I am now, our projects are much bigger. And so we have like project managers. And so they will take a bulk of the project and they are very hands on, specifically um, with kind of finding, working with getting the land, the build out, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas my focus is more so with the lease, writing the lease, negotiating the lease, getting the lease executed, right, which is still a heavy lift. And then we're supposed to have individuals that kind of handle the lease administration, which that is part of the reorganization process. So right now, yes, I do a lot of the bulk of the lease negotiation,
What happened?
hello. Um, my company handles that the entire kind of life cycle of it. We contract out for a lot of things, but we're still, in a sense, kind of responsible for making sure the project is pushed along. So we contract out for the design work with the architects, or we contract out for the construction work, the general contractor that will build it, things of that nature. Those individuals are not in house, but we still have to do the process to contract them, right? To ensure we're getting the best fit, the best individuals to come in and do the work that we're needing to fulfill the need.
Wow, that's a really big project.
Yes, it's a lot of moving parts, and it keeps it fun. I like that. I like having to see all of that. So I find it quite engaging.
So do you really enjoy reading all those things, like contracts? I can't believe it.
I do enjoy contracts. Um,
That's crazy.
it's probably part of like, I mean, I've always been quite bookish, I guess you would say.
Oh, okay.
Always been a reader. Um, and then, like, you see, I mean, you just learn a lot. Maybe I like the legal aspect of it too, a bit, because this is the document that essentially governs all of our interactions. Kind of like the Bible, right? Our Bible is that document that governs
Yes,
all of our interactions.
that's
And
true.
if you don't read it,
Yeah,
how do you know
that's true.
what you can and can't do? And so that's that's how I look at the lease. It's that document that tells us how we can interact with each other.
Oh,
What you're supposed to do, what I'm supposed to do. How do we
uh-huh.
make this thing work? Um, and it's just very interesting because people write and execute these documents in very different ways.
Uh-huh.
And so you kind of learn a lot, and some things frustrate you too because you're like, why would you, you know,
Yeah.
write it like that? But you, and a lot of times you don't recognize that there's an issue until an issue arises.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of the interesting thing about contracts. It's like only when something is challenged, oftentimes, is when it comes to light that, oh, this might not have been the best way to word this or to explain what we did. You as the writer, as a composer, you understood
Uh-huh.
what you were doing, but there's many ways to interpret that. I
Uh-huh.
mean, and it's kind of similar to the Bible, right? If we
Uh-huh.
take it back to that, people read the same scripture and come to completely different ideas
Uh-huh.
about what that scripture means.
Yeah.
Right. But then you have to look at it in the light of the entire document. And that's kind of similar to lease contracts. All
Uh-huh.
right, you have this written here, but now let's look at the entire lease
Uh-huh.
contract and see what the intent was. Right. And sometimes you can only find it out
Uh-huh.
from looking at it that way. Sometimes things are just so bad that you really can't understand the intent, but you still have to work with it.
So as the institute owner, I have to mitigate the struggle the students and teachers have, and then student and student they fight. So do you also find did uh, I don't know, enjoyable or fulfilling to reconcile the conflict or solving problems?
I I do. It's kind of funny because I never thought really of myself as a conflict manager, right? Because I don't like drama. I don't like conflict. I'm the type of person I'll just walk away. It's not that serious. We don't need to expend this energy
Yeah.
on this conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like that's me. But it's funny because God is so good. Before I started my program and while I was doing my master's in commercial real estate, I was working as a flight attendant.
Ah, okay.
Um, and right before I got my first job in commercial real estate, I was a flight attendant.
Uh
And and when you're a flight attendant, you learn the talent of conflict management,
huh.
right? You learn how to deal with all kinds of people in all kinds of situations. And as a flight attendant, you cannot run from them because usually you're locked
Yes.
in this aircraft
Uh huh.
30,000 feet
Uh
in
huh.
the air.
Yeah.
And so you have to learn and figure out how to resolve issues, you know, issues that passengers might have with you, issues that passengers have with each other, and all you want to do is just get to your destination. I'm just trying to get you to where you're trying to go as quickly and seamlessly as possible. Like there shouldn't be all of this drama, but it happens. And so how do you manage that in a way that one maintains your integrity, um, and also, doesn't get you fired because
Yeah.
you did something you weren't supposed to do, um, but so that you can have a pleasant trip. No one wants to be stuck in a plane for however many hours and everybody's mad and there's tension and there's all kinds of things going on. So I've learned to really appreciate the art of conflict management. And many would say that's just another form of negotiations,
Yes.
right? How do we find this common ground? How do we meet in the middle?
Uh huh.
How can we leave this where um, everyone feels like they were heard, like their issue has been addressed, and that they weren't taken advantage of in the end. And
So.
sometimes you can do it very well, and other times, just people are going to be mad, and you
So.
have to learn to live with that too, right?
So what is something in common that really works in both situations? Do you have a story or do you have any illustration? Keeping it
Hmm.
keeping it anonymous.
Let's see. Oh, there's one I would like to talk about, but it's ongoing. It's a current situation we're working on, so I don't think that would be the best one to talk about. Oh man, that's a hard question. You're asking interview questions now. Are you interviewing me for a position? Name a situation in which you had to use your conflict management skills. Oh, you stumped me. You stumped me. I think it's because there's ones that are heavily on my mind right now that we're working
I know
through.
what you go through because I solve problems also every single day.
Yeah. And it's like, you have the stories,
Yeah.
but like what's taking prominence in your brain is what's happening right now, right?
Exactly. I
What,
understand.
you know.
I do understand that. Yeah.
Let me think about that. Maybe before we end, I might
Sure.
have a story.
Sure, 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 sure.
Pull one up.
Sure. Uh, so uh, as you are growing up, what is something that you really learned from your parents that you really truly appreciate that you still practice?
Ooh, that's a good one. Oh, there's a lot There's a lot. Let me see. Let me try to pull one from mom and one from dad. Because, your moms and dads look at the world completely different, right? But that's the blessing that God gave us to have both a male figure
Uh
and a
huh.
female figure in our lives, right? Because how they
Exactly.
handle situations. Um, One thing my dad always said to me, um, oh man, there's a lot from dad. Dad has a lot. Um, my dad is so practical. It's just like he like let's take all the emotion out of this. Practicality.
Wow, really?
Yes, which is good, which is it's been a blessing. I
That's
mean, to
good.
have that because sometimes as women, as a
Yeah,
woman,
that's true.
we kind of get in our feelings a little bit,
That's true.
and dad is like, okay, let's put that aside and just look at this black and white, right? And I'm like, it makes so much sense, Dad. Yeah, but I feel, I still feel. One thing my dad has always told me, um, and I'll put this on both my parents because they both said this in different ways, is they've encouraged me to take advantage of every situation and opportunity. Um, Especially my dad. He would always say, I remember times I was living in another country or in another city for work, and my dad would say, if you want to stay, stay. Don't, you know, don't feel like you need to come home
Wow.
for us.
Wow.
Don't feel like you need to do this um, because you're missing out on something here. You're not missing out on anything here. What's it's going to be here when you get back, right? You can do it when you get back. Take advantage of the opportunity. Um, Stay for as long as you need. But then on the flip side, it was also you can always come home. And
Wow.
to me, I think that has given me the fortitude to be able to just go and explore and to try things, right? My life is definitely has not been what I imagined or planned it would be in high school or in college. Um, High school and college, it was very, you're going to go to medical school, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to do this, you're going to achieve that. And by God's grace, it hasn't been that. Um, but I have not been afraid to travel, to take jobs, to do things, you go back to school, um, because my father specifically was always like, go do it. If you can do it, go do it. And if you don't want to do it anymore, come home. you know? And I think that's a freedom
Wow, that's
that
really cool.
I've noticed in conversations with other people. I've noticed a lot of people never really had that freedom.
No, they don't.
You know, it was always there's a track you have to follow and there's
Exactly.
things you have to do.
Yeah,
You have to get here
yeah.
and and so I believe having that has allowed me to do things like I do, like coming to Korea. I kind of woke up one day and I was like, I'm going to go to South Korea. My dad was like, what? And he was like, okay, be safe, call us. And, and I had an idea of what, I did have individuals I wanted to meet, like Brother Samuel. But other than that, it was just, I want to go. And other things, Brazil, going to live in Brazil. My parents were just like, all right, how does that play into the big picture? I think it plays. Okay, cool. Go experience it because as my dad would say, life is short and life isn't promised. And and I believe that being able to do that opened doors for me and allowed me to even I'll bring it back to this, having that mindset took me to California, which I talked about before. But in California is where I heard the Adventist message. So if I didn't want to move to California. I had no desire to move to California. Um, but my dad was like, he asked the question, is this a good opportunity? Will this help you get where you want to go? And I'm like, yes, yes. And he's like, but he also said, if you don't want to go, don't go. You know, if you really don't want to, but just thinking about it practically, okay, yeah, my feelings weren't there, but I felt that God was leading me there. That was the door that opened as a job. No door opened in Atlanta for me to go in commercial real estate after graduating. That door opened. And so I walked through it. And in doing that, that's where I heard the Adventist message. And that's where I made the decision to become Adventist um, from that. If I had not done that, I believe that I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, right? Because I would not have started reading any of Ellen White's books. I would not have learned about Everlasting Gospel Publishing Association and that they were in Korea, and I wouldn't have taken a trip to Korea, and I wouldn't have gone to church on the Sabbath and met you, right? So,
So you read Sam's book.
yes, yes. I have two of them. I have
Wow.
Testimonies for the Church, and then I have the
Conflict of
History of
Ages. Yeah, History of
Conflict of the
Ages.
Ages series.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, and I think it's one of the best publications. I mean, how it's put together, it
Exactly.
just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, why aren't there more of these? And I was telling, Brother Samuel, like, it's so hard to find. Like this should not be hard to find. Every Adventist should have these.
That's true.
And it should be, attached to our Bibles. And we should be, carrying them around, reading them. And so it shocks me when people don't know what they are.
Exactly.
And so I had to go meet them. And by God's grace, that door was open. But,
Wow.
if I hadn't kind of stepped out and gone to LA, none of that would have happened.
Wow.
And so I see God's providence and hand in it all. Um, and the thing that my mother would always tell me is she would always tell me, remember that you're a child of God.
Wow.
And remember that the things that other people can get away with, you can't get away with.
Oh.
You will never be able to live the life that other people live. And I wasn't raised Adventist. I was raised United Methodist. So from a young age, that is something that I explicitly remember my mom saying. It wasn't you can't do it. It
Oh.
wasn't you shouldn't do it. It was
Wow.
you're a child of God and God sees all and he knows all. And so you can do it, but your outcome is going to be vastly different.
Wow.
Other people can do it and get away with it. They can have this outcome, but you will never be able to live that life because you're God's. And
Wow.
so that's something I've carried with me my whole life that
Wow.
I can't live that life that other people can. I mean, I could try, but as mom said, it's not going to have the same
Wow.
outcome. So,
That's amazing. So you learn to follow the voice of conscience no matter what.
amen,
Wow.
amen. And I think that's a thinking back. I believe that has probably been one of the reasons why God has been an active part of my life this whole time.
Wow.
Of course, I think every child, Every person has a moment where they might fall off a little bit. They might not go to church as much. They might not be involved as much. But even in those times, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be in church. I'm supposed to read my Bible. It's like there's so then coming to the Adventist faith and realizing, oh yeah, I'm really supposed to be doing these things, you
Wow.
know. Um, but to see just God's hand in the whole process, and that my parents allowed me to kind of the freedom to explore, to make decisions, to choose for myself, and to realize that those choices would have consequences, and I was the one that was going to have to live with
Mm.
those consequences.
Wow.
Really helped me to make some of the decisions, the better decisions, that I've made in my life.
Wow. You you have amazing parents.
Praise God. To God be the glory.
That's unbelievable. Not everybody has that kind of parent. That's really
Much,
fantastic. So do you have a,
yeah.
so do you have a story now?
I don't. I don't. I don't. I don't.
You know,
Conflict, Matt.
do you have any like a memorable moment as a flight attendant?
Ooh, there's a lot of memorable moments as a. I think being a flight attendant was just a great job. I had always wanted to travel, and I tell people this, like, coming to, and this was before coming into Adventism, so we kind of get this, the separation, right? Because now I probably wouldn't be a flight attendant just because there's things that conflict with our
Faith.
faith,
Yeah.
and having a clear understanding of these things we shouldn't do, but we also shouldn't encourage other people to do and be involved in that, like specifically liquor. Like, as a flight attendant, you have to serve alcohol.
Oh, okay.
There's really no way around that.
I see.
Um, and then initially, usually, when you first begin as a flight attendant, your life is not your own. And so there's a very real possibility that you'll have to work on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Um, and so, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't encourage individuals to do, especially, Adventists. But before coming to this, I thought it was a great opportunity because you get to travel, you get to learn a lot of skills that, I didn't think about. People just think, a flight attendant, you just serve drinks, you're just on the plane as this kind of fixture. But there's a lot of, you learn how to work on a team, because you have, your pilots, you have the other flight attendants that you work with. You learn conflict resolution, not just with your team. I mean, because sometimes you're working with people that you don't like, or they don't like you, right? Or they do things that annoy you, or sometimes they're very overbearing. I'm pretty laid back, so I'm just like, do what you do your job, I do my job. We're cool. I might not like how you do your job, but that has nothing to do with me. you know, but there's some people that are very overbearing.
Oh.
Um, and so you have to learn how to deal with those individuals. You have the passengers that you have to learn to deal with. People are anxious about their flight being late. They want you to call ahead and hold planes and do all kind of stuff that you just can't do.
Oh, really?
um, yeah, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. We had, yeah. That was we get that a lot. Can you call the other plane and tell them that I'm coming? And it's like, I don't have that capability to do that. They know you're coming. They see on the screen that you're there and you haven't checked in, but to tell them to hold the plane for you, nah, I can't do that. I,
Wow,
I don't
people
have that
ask stuff
authority.
like that? Wow.
They do. People have asked if we can track their bags for them. Have you? Have you see that my bag is made it on the plane? No, ma'am, I haven't seen that. I'm here helping you get situated. I cannot track your bag for you. Well, I can't get on this flight if I that was probably a conflict that I had on the plane. This couple were standing at the door and were talking to me about their bag. We need to make sure our bag made it on the plane. We need to make sure we can't take this flight if our bag's not here. And I'm like, okay, well, you can stand to the side and wait for someone to come tell you if your bag made it, or you can get on the plane and we can get to the destination and you can trust that your bag will be there. But you can't hold up my boarding because you want to talk to me about your bag. I don't know where your bag is. I can't track it. But people will do that. People
Oh.
people people will definitely ask you all kinds of questions
Oh wow.
and ask you to do things that you just have no ability to do. I wish I could tell you where your bag is right now, but
So do you
I
also
can't.
communicate with the pilots too?
Most of the communication with the pilot is before um, we close the boarding door. So usually before we close the door that separates the cockpit from the cabin is when we have the most communication. They tell us about the flight, they tell us about time, what they might need, if anything,
Oh.
if they need something. There's a little communication in the air, especially when there's issues. I think the most you asked about the most memorable experience. I was on a plane and we had to do an emergency landing because we lost one of our engines.
Huh?
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. We lost the engine, and
Engine broke.
yeah, there was a malfunction, and so we had to do the whole emergency landing procedure. We're trained to do like there's planned and unplanned emergencies. So unplanned, as you can imagine, something happens immediately. There's no time to respond. There's no time to
Oh.
prepare people for it. It's just we're in this emergency situation. That's usually what you see on the TV,
Yeah.
right? A plane is taking off or landing, and all of a sudden things just go haywire, and
Oh.
so flight attendants just start yelling. Well, ours was planned because we were in the sky, we were flying, and they started getting errors in the front, and it didn't impact us flying, but it was going to impact us on landing. So we had to get the whole cabin prepared um, for for the landing
Wow.
in case there was some type of fire or they wouldn't be able to control the plane or any of those things. So it was really tense because now you're watching your passengers basically freak out, right?
Wow.
They're like, "What do you mean emergency landing?" And
Like,
we're going through everything.
I mean, where did you land? Like on the land?
Yeah, we made it to the airport. We made it to the landing strip. Um, and we landed fine.
Oh, okay.
Like, but it's just the whatever was going on, they were able to like do what pilots do, right? Override it, pull from something else, do this, or they have their whole series of of things that they do. Press the buttons, move the levers, whatever they did. By God's grace, we landed safely. But it's just watching your passengers go from, just enjoying their flight, eating their snacks, until all of a sudden, like, people are crying. People are freaking out because they're like, "What do you mean emergency?" And like we're going through the whole process, like, in depth. We're showing people how to use the flotation devices, how to open this door. What happens if your flight attendant can't do this? What you need to do. Like, and people, people are like, what in the world? I mean, just a couple ladies were just like bawling. I can't call anybody. I need to call, and you're like, you know, and to see that, you just realize that, life is precious and you never know how you will respond in a type of situation like that. But as a flight attendant, you can't respond. Even if I wanted to cry, I can't cry, right? That's I have to remain the voice of reason and calm in this chaotic situation, right? You can cry, I can't cry. I have to console you. And so um, it does build a bit of empathy for others and situational awareness, and you just learn how to be strong, because that's your job, in that situation when things go haywire. You have to know how to respond in a way that can have the best outcome for everybody involved, right? If this thing does blow up, or if there's a fire, I'm trying to get everyone in my plane out as safely as possible. So that means I have to remain focused and tuned in and aware. I can't succumb to my feelings at this point, even though I really want, to just
Freak
curl
out.
up and cry.
Wow.
Yeah,
So I guess your experience as a flight attendant should be helping you in your relationship with your customers and coworkers right now.
absolutely it does. Absolutely. I am the voice of reason, even though I want to cry sometimes with my projects. I can't. I have to be the voice of reason, the voice of calm. I have to be the one um that realizes there's a purpose and a goal. Okay, we can't get stuck here in this cycle. We have to reach the goal. And so how can we overcome this hurdle to position us to continue and press forward, right?
Uh-huh.
Because just like in the plane, the landing is coming. This plane has to land somewhere at some time. And so there's going to be a reckoning. Either they're able to do what they need to do and it's a safe landing. I think we had to be towed um, to the gate after that. They had to clear now that they remember, they had to clear all the runways, and they had to have emergency personnel lined up ready because no one knew what was going to happen on landing.
Oh.
So it's like this is a hurdle, but it's going to hit, right? The landing is going to come. How do we respond to it? How do we best prepare and position ourselves so that in case of whatever might come from this, we can respond quickly, right? We can help or get the task done. And so, yes, that is part of the conflict management. Those same skills translate to what I do now because we all, the tenant needs a space, the owner wants to lease the space, right? How do we bring these two people together?
Hmm.
What we're talking about is preventing us from solving both parties'
Hmm.
issues,
Yeah.
right? And if we can't come to an agreement, then we need to move on and free people up to do, make decisions that they can. Otherwise, we need to continue to press forward and get it done. So yeah, it definitely helps. I appreciate my time as being a flight attendant because it definitely gave me some skills I did not have. Going from a research lab, I'm just working with, three other people, and we're all like pipetting in test tubes, right? And you know, there's there's no conflict here, right? There's no major problems arising. Like they're working on their research, I'm working on my research. We're just doing our job. There's nobody yelling at me about bags or about missed flights or about this person has their feet on my chair, or this person took this off and have what's that smell, or can I get this? There's you don't have any of that in a research lab. So I definitely had to learn. I learned a lot from that job, which I think really helps me now to be able to deal with people um, that I didn't have before. I can honestly say I didn't have it before. Growing up as a bookish person, just liking to be in my space and to, pipette, and I could tell you all about science and all about this and that and the other. And I can do it eloquently and I can, speak with confidence. But your problems, dealing with challenges and people to that degree, never had an opportunity. until became a flight attendant. And I think that was one of the greatest opportunities God gave me, because I learned so much.
I feel like God is testing me every single day when relationships break down, when problems hit. I have to choose, as you said. Am I going to get angry? Am I going to be bitter? Or am I going to be compassionate and sweet? Am I going to be sweeter when I'm squeezed? Or am I going to become bitter when I'm squeezed? So
Amen.
there are two options I have. So because of the challenges, because of the nasty people, I become
Mm,
sweeter. Um, so these days, I'm trying to enjoy the challenges instead of running away from it. I just face it and just smile before I solve the problem, and then I keep
absolutely.
smiling as I see things resolved.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to smile. I mean, people come at you with all kinds of energy. And
Yeah,
you're like, I didn't do this. Like,
yeah,
I don't have your bag.
yeah, yeah.
I didn't make us late.
Exactly.
There was a storm. We
Yeah,
couldn't land,
yeah,
but you receive the brunt of it even when it's not your problem.
exactly.
And so you just have to realize that in many cases you don't know what's prompting that. And that's another thing I learned as being a flight attendant is that people come to you in all kinds of situations. Like there's so many times, like an older gentleman got on the plane one time and he was very rude.
Oh,
I mean, just rough and rude and discourteous and
oh,
kind of commanding and sat on his seat and was just gruff. And something told me to go talk to him when we were in the sky. He was sitting by in a seat by himself. And so I just stopped and just asked him how he was doing. And he told me that he was on a trip, this last minute trip, because his best friend's daughter had just died. Just, I think it was a car wreck or something. And he's like, she was, I think, like in her 20s or 30s.
oh.
He's like, my best friend's child was just killed. And so you don't know what people are going through. Like he's exhibiting this rudeness, this gruffness,
Yes.
but he's dealing with supporting a friend who just lost their only daughter,
Oh, wow.
so how you you cannot, um you don't know how things will affect you and how it affects people.
Mm.
He's not crying, but he's rude right
Yes,
now
yes.
because his mind is not on the people around him. His mind is with his best friend and with the family, that he loves and the challenges that they're going through. And on this plane that he didn't plan to be on, taking a trip he didn't plan to take to support his friend, in their time of grief. And so you really realize that you're coming in contact with all kinds of people. And that wasn't the only situation. There's many situations where, um, people are flying for funerals, flying because a loved one got rushed to the hospital and they're trying to make it before they die because, the prognosis isn't great. You have individuals that this is their first time flying. They're 40, 50 years old and they're like
Freaking out.
freaking out. And you don't understand it as a flight attendant. Like you live your life in the air. So you're like, you know, you don't understand it, but how do you have compassion for someone who's never been on a plane and they're scared, right?
Are you
Um,
serious?
yes.
Wow, that's crazy.
I mean, scared. A lot of people are frightened of flying.
Oh.
And I don't understand it. It's so funny because I tell people someone was telling me they were flying and then they hit a really bad patch of turbulence in the air. and they got really scared. And I said, turbulence is the best time to go to sleep. I mean, like, you get some of the best sleep when the plane is bumping and shaking. And they're like, "You're crazy." And I'm like, you know, so we have completely different views on, the flying experience. I sleep in turbulence, other people are awake and gripping and scared. And I'm like, so, but you have to have compassion for these individuals. Um, and that's something I learned too, how to deal with these individuals who are going through these very difficult times. And sometimes you're you're the only person who can console them, um, or you're the only person, or you're the face of all of the grief, right? And so you get hit with all of the tension, right? It's aimed at you, even though you had no hand in it. But because they're stressed and going through it, and they don't know which way is up, they see you and they just need to lash out. But how do you handle that? You know? Um, and so it does remind you that we're all people, and we all have our moments sometimes. And if I was in this situation, how would I want someone to approach me? How would I want someone to treat me? Um, and so yeah, it was a great learning experience with skills that I do use in my current position. Though now I'm not locked in a pressurized metal tube with them. I can kind of just ignore the email for a little bit, or not take the phone call until things die down. But you still have to resolve the conflict. You still have to address it in most cases. But
Yeah,
how do you do that?
we live in a world where bitterness and anger are pretty prevalent, but we can still bring peace and joy into the mess, and then
Absolutely.
people are softened when we manifest a different spirit. So, um, you and I are bringing heaven into hell.
Am- Amen. Amen. We
through
are.
through what we do. So it's a blessing to serve
It
people.
is.
That's pretty much the bottom line.
Yep. And that's what we're called to do,
Yeah,
right? To be the light that shines. We can't hide it.
exactly,
And the world around us is dark. So we have
exactly.
to expect that people's dealings with us is not going to be in a Christ-like way
Hmm.
or in a kind way,
Yeah,
because the majority of the world is in darkness.
yeah.
The majority of the world doesn't realize that, oh, we should behave this way, or we should carry ourselves this way, or we should treat people this way.
Hmm.
The majority of the world is self-centered, is focused
Hmm.
on what's going on with them. And so you're right, we have to cons- maintain our connection with heaven
Hmm.
so that we can transfer that to those around us. And by
Exactly.
God's grace, in living our life, they will be convicted,
Uh huh.
and they will see God in a way that is not just preached at them, but they see
Yes.
Christ being lived
Uh huh.
out day to day.
Yeah. So I think my attitude changed when I see people that are having a bad day. I just okay. He is crying in a different way, even if he's angry.
Yeah.
So it's an expression of his frustration. So well, I learned so much from you. Even though we began with the real estate, but we ended with peace above the storm.
Amen.
Thank you so
Amen.
much. I hope you visit Korea again and we'll hang out again.
By God's grace, I would love to come back. I really enjoyed my time
Yeah,
there, and it wasn't long enough because there's so many things I
exactly.
wish I could have seen and experienced. So by God's grace, I'll be back, and I'll be sure to let you
Sure.
know and let everyone know.
Yeah,
Get together.
sure. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your trip in South Africa and enjoy your mission work.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite and for this opportunity to share a little bit of my story, and I pray that it will be a blessing to someone who hears it, an encouragement, um, strengthening. Maybe it gives you a little insight into your purpose or
Exactly.
call to what God is calling you to do. Because until the time comes where man will not work, we have to work.
Exactly.
You know, and by God's grace, we can take His love into that
Uh-huh.
arena and show and work with integrity,
Exactly.
and with His love, and
Uh-huh.
not allow the darkness of the world to infiltrate us, but we infiltrate the darkness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So thank you so
Thank you
much,
so much. It
Jaywa.
was a
All the
huge blessing.
Thank you, thank you. All the
Yeah.
best to you and your
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. You too. Bless your.
Thank
I hope God bless your work and your family.
thank you, thank
Thank you,
you.
Kachael. Bye
Bye.
bye.